Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another Zaggertastics video. It is I, your friend, the one, the only Z, a single gut-erd, Zaggard, and I hope you're all having a wonderful morning, noon, night, evening, whatever time it is for you today. Welcome back to the Dragon's Den, and this is going to be the first video of my campaign diary of a series that I'm going to call ADHD and D. If you can't tell why it's called that, it's because I am playing a tabletop RPG, so there's your D&D, and I have ADHD, and this series is a thing that I want to make for you and for myself to help those who have ADHD kind of feel less alone when it comes to planning and running a game of Dungeons and Dragons or whatever your preferred tabletop RPG of choice is. I will refer to all of them as D&D for simplicity's sake, but whatever you play, go ahead, talk about it in the comments down below. Already, the ADHD is taking over, because what I wanted to talk about is my campaign diaries. I almost did not get through that word. So we just had our session 0 / a teensy bit of session 1 that I had planned last night. Today is Sunday the 26th, so it was on Saturday the 25th. The first big problem for everybody is scheduling. That's always a problem, 100% of the time. I'm going to actually come out with a video of 10 rules to help your Dungeons and Dragons game run a little smoother, especially if you suffer from ADHD like myself, or you have players that do. And if you guys are all mature enough, hopefully most of you will be mature adults, but if you're not, and you're a teenager, this can help too. When you give your players rules and boundaries, the point isn't to be like, I am the dictator, I am the Batman, and I will demand you follow my rules. No, that's not it. The point of it is because for most people, we like structure. We pretend that we like to be free and we like to go out in nature, and that is true. We do like those things, and we love the freedom of RPGs and how they let you just kind of imagine whatever you want to imagine and do what you want to do. Like, in a video game, sometimes it's like, oh, I want to do this thing, but you're restricted by the coding of a game, because a human can only code so much and a game can only process so much. So we play tabletop RPGs like D&D for that freedom of creativity. Like, oh, I want to jump on his back, do a backflip, then throw a boomerang into his head as I jump off and kick him in the face. Like, you want to do all that stuff in D&D, and that's cool. And you should be allowed to have a level of freedom, but humans inherently love structure, okay? Like, you look at nature and things are at these weird angles, like trees grow in weird angles, just going out towards the sun in whichever direction they want. Animals tend to be very curved. The ocean has no, controlled spacing of it. But we humans, we love to live in buildings with right angles. We make a floor, and then we put a wall next to it and make a right angle there. And then we put another wall and make a right angle. And then we put a ceiling on top of that, and we make a box of right angles. Our whole lives are filled with structure, whether you realize it or not. Roads have lines telling you exactly where to go and where to stay in. Schools have hallways. Desks have boxes. They are shaped rectangularly. Very few people have circular desks or round tables. And even the Knights of the Round Table, the most right angular device or structure you can build, a circular one, even they have an order. They were an order of the Knights of the Round Table. There was structure there. There's always structure. We love structure. And one of the problems with people who suffer from ADHD or other sorts of mental illnesses is a lack of understanding structure, or a lack of structure to help them deal with the different difficulties and challenges in life. Trust me, I've suffered this for my whole life, and it isn't until fairly recently to where I've started to notice the flaws that I have and how to properly start to deal with them. Like, I always understood some of the flaws, like, oh, you have trouble focusing, you have trouble getting motivated. Okay, but how do I fix that, right? I'm not going to be able to help you 100% with all of those challenges in your daily life, but I can help you with Dungeons and Dragons, because that is something I have been struggling with and dealing with for quite a long time, ever since COVID. I got into D&D, like about a year or two before that. I got into D&D. Apparently my ADHD says, let's go over some background, because that's what we love as DMs. We love background in our characters, right? So I actually have a horror story for D&D. If you guys want to hear about it sometime, let me know down in the comments. I find it to be a very hilarious horror story, but it literally killed my enjoyment of D&D, my best friend's enjoyment in D&D, and his brother's enjoyment of D&D for like 5+ years. And then a completely different friend of mine was like, hey, do you want to play D&D? And I was like, I guess I'll try it. Immediately, I fell in love with it. 2 different DMs, very different approaches. One was terrible, one was awesome. Like, I'm not even kidding. if I ever tell the story, it is wild. But we're here to talk about me. So I got into D&D, and then when COVID, the pandemic happened, all of my friends were just hanging out, and they had all suddenly gotten into Dungeons and Dragons as well. I think it was because there was a big streamer at the time. I'm forgetting his name. You'll know in the comments, but he became really popular. So D&D in general became really popular for a lot of gamers who are watching streams. And I invited a bunch of my friends to play it, and we played Mines of Phandelver, did that campaign, and then I did Storm King's Thunder. And as a second time DMing, I gotta say, terrible way to learn to DM that. I mean, it teaches you things not to do when you're making your own campaign, at the very least. Or at least it tells you what books to look out for, to not purchase, to run. Because that module it's not newbie friendly like the starter set is for Mines of Phandelver, because the first one is very structured and has a story, and the other one is very sandbox, and it's just like kind of go wherever you want. And you're like, I don't know when to get from this part to this part. So that part, because of how difficult that was for me to run as my second campaign, it kind of burned me out. And I asked a friend of mine, hey, can you run a campaign? He never did. Long story short, we built our characters, waited a month. That was when our first play session was going to be. And then a complication happened and we pushed it back a month. And I was like, when are we going to play? And they're like, well, you're not the DM. Don't pressure the other players. I'm like, okay, fine. Another month goes by. I'm like, well, I was told not to say anything. Another month goes by. I'm like, okay, that's it. I'm going to say something because it's been 3 months, way past when we were supposed to play. Are we going to play? And basically everybody said, no, I don't really feel like playing anymore. I was like, fuck. Okay, well, guess we're not playing. And then I started up another one about a year or two later. I'm going to say 2 years later, because I started getting the itch to play and run again. And I got some of those old players, 2 of the original players, a third new player, and then at that point I had started dating Claire, and I asked her to join. And she was like, okay, I'll try it. And we were having fun. Me and Claire were definitely having fun. Because I live with Claire, the next thing is engagement. It's easy to know when someone's engaged when you can talk to them one-on-one. A lot of times you're not gonna be able to talk to people about this one-on-one. You don't see them every day. So you try to message them online, and that just feels annoying. Like when you get that bloop notification on Discord or Instagram or what have you, and it's like, hey, what did you think of the session? Your natural instinct is gonna be like, ooh, God, why is this guy, he's so annoying. And then there's that part of your brain's like, don't invite him to the party. All he's gonna do is talk about Dungeons and Dragons. It's really annoying. But I promise you, you should tell your players. So this is one of the things that I didn't realize I needed to do. So I wrote into my rules, in my rules, that I need structure. With ADHD, there needs to be structure. There needs to be a plan that we all agree on, and we need to follow through with that plan. If that doesn't happen, things break down internally for me. And when they break down internally, I fear about them breaking down externally. And they generally do. Not just with people with ADHD, but in general. If you had a company that had a due date where they needed to supply a certain amount of product within 3 months, and then they just didn't do it, that company would fail. Now, we're not running a company here, but we're still a group of human beings who have lives, and we live in structures. We need structures even for our fun times. And so one of my first rules is when we start the session, before we start the session, we will all come together that day and decide when is the next session going to be. You can also, if you want, if your group is really amenable to it, you can say, hey, every 3rd Thursday, or every 4th Saturday, or every Tuesday, just in general. If you guys can do that. My group probably won't be able to do that because schedules are so weird, but we did make the rule and we all agreed to it to come together at the beginning of each session and say, what is the next date we're going to meet? And we all agree on it that day, then and there. And then the next thing we agreed on is if someone can't make the session, we just play without them. We're not going to kick them out. We're not going to be like, you missed 3 sessions and your sick days. And one of my friends actually made this joke, and I was trying to stay focused, but I found it hilarious. I hope if you see this, buddy, I loved that joke, by the way. I was just very focused. That was the ADHD had to take over and be focused. And I couldn't just laugh at it. But I thought it was hilarious. He's like, what, do I have to put this into my sick days and work? Is this cut into my PTO? What's happening here? It was pretty good. I liked it. But you just gotta make your friends aware, hey, I need this structure. I would appreciate it. This way we won't lose sessions. And if one person can't make it, we play without them. If 2 people can't make it, we play without them. If 3 people can't make it, because I have 6 players, so there's 7 of us, that's when we start talking about, okay, maybe we should move the session back. Especially if you all have a thing that you have to go to. For instance, I'm going to be married at the end of the year in September, and all of my players are invited. So we know not to schedule it on that date. But if we did by accident, because we're all idiots somehow, and none of us can look at a freaking calendar, then I'd be like, okay, we can push it back. We're all not going to make it. But then that brings up another question. If you're playing in person, like we are, there's going to be someone hosting. What if the host is sick and they can't do it, or something happens to them? What do you do? Well, there are some obvious solutions. One is canceling, but that should be resort Z. That should be plan Z, the final plan, the lemon-scented plan.
It's evil. It's diabolical. It's lemon-scented.
But instead, plan B should be, who is the next host? And we have a plan for that. So we have friend one, who has a much bigger house. She shares with a bunch of housemates that has so much more space. Like, it's like, if I took a picture of it, you would be able to tell how much more space it is. Then we have the next friend, who's my best friend, the Mythology Guy. His place has not a bunch of space, but a decent amount of space for a group of people. He's had multiple parties. Then there's my place, is plan C. Mine is like just one step above plan Z, basically, so it's more like plan Y, where we have just enough space for maybe like 5 to 6 people to hang out in, and I have terrible folding chairs. I'll post a picture of my folding chairs. They are not very comfortable to sit in for long periods of time, so I have some seat cushions to help with that, but they don't help all that much. And one of my friends visibly was like, oh, please don't make me sit in those chairs again. And buddy, I am sorry. If I had a bigger place, I would have normal chairs. I promise you. So that's our plan. Our plan is we have hosting area A, hosting area B, hosting area C, and then plan Z, the lemon-scented plan, which is we push a session back. So those are like the first things, is we plan our sessions. We make sure we know who's hosting. We make sure that we all know that if someone can't make it, we keep playing, because like so many intelligent dungeon masters have said, I'd rather play with some of my friends than none of my friends. Then we kind of talked about making character sheets. See, we're officially playing in the Dungeon Coach's DC 20, and I really like this system, but it is a new system and it's not even complete yet. So none of them really know how to make characters. I barely know, and I know because one, I've made a few practice characters, so I knew. And two, I've watched that video he has online of making characters like 5 times to try and get it down. I still don't have it memorized. I printed out exactly the step-by-step guide he did. I know he has a version in his playtest document, but I need a version in my own written word printed out. I printed that out, and I have that ready. It's like, okay, so we're here. Okay, so this is what we do. Like, because I wrote it down in a way that I can quick and easily, right, that's the information. Blah, 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 blah. And that should probably be my next tip, is rewrite stuff in your own handwriting, the way you word it. It doesn't have to be handwritten, it could be typed. The point is to retranslate it in a way that your brain makes the most sense. Do that with everything in your Dungeons and Dragons games, because you might be able to just read it and understand, this is exactly how this spell works. But I can guarantee you, a lot of you are probably like me, where you read that and it's like after the first sentence of the spell, you're like, what does this thing freaking do again? So rewrite it in a way that makes it clearer for you, because that'll help you run the game more smoothly. I mean, we do this with machines already anyways. Like, your phone operates different than your computer, which operates different than your TV, which operates different than your car. Yeah, they're all technology. Yeah, they all use code of 1s and 0s, but ultimately they interpret that code differently to make a different experience for you. And your brain works the same way. Now, we don't go in 1s and 0s, it's more like a thunderstorm in there, but the point is the same. Your brain works differently than the guy who made the original rules for D&D. And even that guy is going to be different than the guy who ended up typing it out into a book format, who then went through an editor, and then that went through an editing process. Like, the original way they probably wrote those spells is probably very different than the way it ended up coming out when they printed it, because that's just how running a company that prints anything works. So then once we made our characters, most of us made new characters. Some of us used old characters from a previous campaign just to make things easier for certain players and to speed things up. And I thank you all for doing that, who did. Then we had them go through their backstories. And I actually have some resources that I got Kickstarters for to help with backstories. I would pull them out, but they're in this box of stuff that I haven't unpacked yet. And if I start unpacking that now, this video will not end. I promise you. I will start unpacking it, forget I'm doing a video, and then I'll be like, oh, I gotta put this away. Oh, I gotta put this away. Oh, it's time to make dinner. So the point is, I have resources in there. Maybe I'll show them in a future video. Comment down below if you'd like to see the resources I use. We made the character sheets. Although I do have in my journal of goodies, probably shouldn't have said that while I was unzipping it, but who else? Let's see, here's one of my characters. I like to print out these playing cards on cardstock. I made these playing cards of healing potions for our games. And as you see, I put a little box in the picture. So I first denote what it does. In DC 20, basic healing potions heal for 2 HP. And then I put the name of it to make it more fancy, so that way they can be like, oh, I have a minor healing potion. And then I put a box so that way they know how many they have. That way they don't have to track it on the character sheet. They can have the card and be like, quickly, yes, I have 1 or 10 or whatever. And then, of course, the regular DC 20 sheet. And then this player wrote down a bunch of their spells and stuff, just quick hand here. And I'm going to print out a card on cardstock, because I still have some cardstock, and I made some cards of how the spells work, the names, the description of them, so that way it can be like you're playing a game of Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh, where it's like, what does this spell card do? Blah, 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 blah. And then there was also this free printout that you can also use to write down all the spells and abilities and even more descriptor in the player's handwriting. Again, I really recommend stuff like this, because just like how you as the DM need things transcribed in your own mental writing, the players do too. Like, how you write it is going to be different than the way the players perceive it. And then finally, this is my favorite one. I have these 3 sheets of backstory. It's just quick questions like, how did your character learn their skills? Where were they born? And then on the last sheet, it's 5 rumors, 2 true rumors, 2 false rumors, and then a 5th one that can be true or false. And then because we have 6 players, what I plan to do, because these characters don't know each other yet, some of them might know each other, but ultimately they don't. I think it makes really fun new character interactions when they have some rumors they've heard about another character, like Jason the Grey. I heard that he once killed a man by stomping in his face so hard. Carrie the Kind. I heard that she was willing to give up all her gold to save one 10-year-old child. Like, is this a true rumor? Is this a false rumor? Is the player going to say it's true or false? How are they going to roleplay that? It creates roleplay opportunities that are less obvious than you would think, because at first you think, oh, they're just going to say, oh, that's true or that's false. But they could play into it. Maybe this character wants people to think these false rumors, or maybe they don't like showing off these positives. It's like, it's greatly exaggerated what really happened. We'll see how they roleplay it, and this lets not just the player learn more about their character, but then the others, and that kind of grows who the character is outside of their basic backstory. Not that a backstory is basic, but these extra details kind of add on. Like, you had a nickname probably in school. Why'd you have that nickname? It's not important for as an adult, but it is a memory that is important to you, and it probably helped shape who you are as a person. So those rumors are important to the characters, just like nicknames and rumors for us in the real life are important to who we are as people. So once we got their backstories, and I went through a bunch of different rules I have, like for starters, I'm the DM. If I make a ruling mid-game, we're gonna follow that until the end of the game. However, if you don't like that ruling, I literally tell all my players this. If there is something that happens in the game that you don't like a ruling I made, or another player did a thing that made you uncomfortable as a person, right? Talk to me afterwards and we will try to fix it. I want it to be as clear between me and them how we're going to make this game better for all of us, because I want to be really good as a dungeon master. And one of the ways I want to get good is I want them to basically critique me constantly. I want them to, in between each session, say, hey, I really like the action, or I really like your description of the gore of when a monster is killed, how its arm got ripped off. I love that. Lean into that. That makes me excited, and I have so much fun with that idea. It really paints a picture. One of my players actually said that, because I just naturally have practiced thinking about what happens when an arrow goes into a monster, or what happens when you slice a guy in half. I practice imagining that and then describing it in the moment. And he was saying how much he loved that. And knowing that he loved that told me that I should do that more. I should practice it more. I should lean into it more in the games to help him engaged. Because when the players are engaged, you're engaged. Like, if you're just sitting there talking and all of them are like, yeah, whatever. Cool. Fun. You're not going to be having fun. You're going to be like, dude, get off your phone. It's going to piss you off. But ultimately, that's your fault if you're not being fun. I mean, some players are assholes. I will admit that. Some players are assholes 100% of the time. But it starts with the DM. Do they know how to entertain their players? And there's only one way to know if you're entertaining them. And that's for them to tell you. If they don't tell you, I mean, there are multiple ways for them to tell you. They're engaged, they're having fun, they're role-playing, they're getting into the action. That's one way to tell you at the table. But it's always good to have them tell you off the table, because sometimes people pretend. And they don't pretend because they want to lie to you. Some people are people pleasers. I'm a people pleaser. My fiance's a people pleaser. Most of my friends are people pleasers. It just happens to be that way. And we either intentionally or unintentionally try to make others happy, even when we are not. And so you should let them know, tell me when you are not having fun. Tell me when you are having fun. Because if you do that, they will appreciate that. They will appreciate that they can be honest with you. It'll let them know that their input is valuable. And just as important for you, it'll help you know how to run a better game, make the game more fun for everybody. I cannot stress this enough. It is one of the things that I am so excited for my characters. I'm so excited for my players to tell me, hey, this was bullshit. Like, I fucking hated this scene. Can you not do that again? Or to be like, dude, that was so fucking cool when you had the lizard snake lady come in and we thought she was gonna try and kill us, and it turns out she was turning against her god, the one she worshipped, and her people, because she realized how evil they truly were. That like blew my mind. When they tell you stuff like that, that makes you want to keep going. You don't stop when someone is making you happy. I mean, look at George Lucas. He's such a great example of this. I almost could not say the word. Like when the first movie came out, he didn't think it was gonna be that great. He was worried it was gonna fail, and then people loved A New Hope. And so he went into the next one. He's like, I'm going to continue my story because I know what people like. And I'm going to make a new one that's different enough to where it's not just the same movie, but just enough the same to where it keeps them invested. And then he made The Empire Strikes Back, and everybody loved that. And then he made Return of the Jedi, and that split people between the ending, but for the most part, everybody still said this is a great ending to the story. I love the ending for this story. And then look at what happened when he made the prequels. He had no input. Like in the original, like it's so famous now in the Star Wars community, or just the movie community, that George Lucas, when making episodes 4, 5, and 6, he had people coming in and being like, George, I don't know if this really works. I don't like this line. Can you take it out? I think a character should act this way. It is very well known that he had so much input when making those films. But then when he made the prequels, 1, 2, and 3, there are so many stories of where basically everybody around George became a yes man, because they were like, this man created Star Wars. He can do no wrong. And there were times where people were like, I did not think this was a good idea, but I didn't want to say anything to George. Like George would say, hey, do you think this is a good idea? And they'd be like, yes, George. Yes, that's an amazing idea, George. Continue that, George. I like that, George. Even when it was a terrible idea. And then we all hated those prequels. We hated them for years. And that's when he gave up. He didn't give up when episode 4 came out and people said, we love it. He didn't give up when people said, we love episode 6. Yeah, there's some problems with it, but we still love it. He gave up when people said, you ruined the series. I mean, go look back. People used to hate George Lucas for the way he did the prequels. And I've gone on a long ADHD tangent. The point is, you want input. You want to give input as a player. You want to give input as a DM, and you want to take that input and improve your game. These are super important, especially with someone with ADHD. You can never tell what you're doing that bugs people and what you're doing that people are okay with and what they actually like. Like seriously, one of the big problems of having ADHD is there are like parts of your brain that want to do things. Like maybe you want to like just hug people all the time, or you want to just kind of like go woo, 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 like I'm not saying everyone is like that, but I've had moments where I'm at home alone and I just start making weird noises because my brain is like, just do that. Just let the energy out. Just do that. Just do that. Just do that. But most of the time in public, you have to do what everyone does this, but ADHD people, we know what it's like, is you mask, where you cover that part of your brain that's like, I want to go woo, 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 woo. I cover that part of my brain that wants to hug people because I know not everybody likes being touched. You cover that up and you hold it back. And the reason we cover that up is because we've been told other people don't like these things. And so that makes you guess for all the time. You're always second guessing. Is this the right move? Is this what I should be doing? Should I be doing something else? And everybody does that to some degree. But I feel like ADHD people, or at least myself, I'm always like second guessing. Like I go to do a thing. I'm like, oh, would this person like this? How well do I know this person? And I go through like a list of scenarios that could possibly happen. One of them is always a car exploding. Don't ask me why. Just is. Guess that's like my worst case scenario. Car exploding or a meteorite hitting something if I do X, Y, or Z. And so having your players tell you what they do not want and what they do want frees up your brain so much. It gives you so much calm because you're like, I know exactly what they want. When you don't have to try to read someone's mind, when they have told you what is on their mind, it is probably the greatest gift they can give you. And I say that, I genuinely believe that. Like now that I know one of my players likes when I describe the gory stuff, I'm gonna have no problem doing it. I'm gonna love doing it. I'm gonna look forward to doing it because that player's gonna like it. And it's gonna make us both happy. And I think some of my other players kind of lean in and like, yeah, I kind of like the gore too. It's pretty good. Like, I didn't make it too gory. I wasn't like, the guts spill out and blood splurts out. Although maybe I'll try that. Maybe I'll try to push that boundary, see how far I can go until a player says, hey, turn it down a notch. Right now you're at an 11. We're good with the 7. Right? 7-11. Of course my brain did that. So that was kind of our session 0, was we were going over creating our characters, and I gotta say I had so much fun with how Session 0 started. It made me so excited to start Session 1, which I planned for months, by the way. I did so much planning for Session 1, but we'll get into that in the next video. So for now, thank you all for joining me for this video. Comment down below if you have any stories about your Session 0 or about having ADHD and playing D&D or whatever TTRPG of your choices. And just, I would like to create a really fun community of people just talking about this shared hobby we have down below. Let me know if any of the stories I talked about you want to hear about, like maybe my terrible RPG horror story. It's not like the worst thing ever, but it was so bad. It made me legitimately hate Dungeons and Dragons. Oh, I want to talk about it so bad. Anyways, thank you all for joining us. Have a wonderful morning, noon, night, evening, whatever time it was for you today. Stay safe, stay smart, stay healthy, be thankful for everything and everyone in your life. And the number one rule here in the Dragon's Den: don't believe in yourself. Believe in me, who believes in you. Bye-bye, players.